I'm really excited to talk to you all. I was telling the table there, I'm really a facilitator. I'm not a public speaker, so fingers crossed this goes well. It might actually be a me thing this time. I have had experiences of inclusion and exclusion my whole life, and what I really wanted to do was just share some of those, and hopefully they turn into experiences that you all can learn from, especially when we're dealing with youth. The person who helped me put my slides together was like, here's some really cool slides. So that's the first one you see. And then I was like, haha, I'll raise you one. Here's some even cooler slides. But I am gonna dig into some stories from my past. I'm a crier, so I'm telling you up front, if my eyes tear up, it's just because I really care about this. I do wish we made time for more folks to experience emotions like that. Every one of you is probably in this room because you have a big heart and you care about people. And sometimes that shows up with tears. And so I don't want you to ever be ashamed of those, and I'll do my best not to be either. So, I will start with one of my first experiences of exclusion. So I went to Cheviot Elementary. Anyone in here from Cincinnati? Yeah, anyone in here familiar with Cheviot? Yeah, you probably don't know many good things about it. There aren't many to talk about. But I went to Cheviot Elementary School, and I remember I was dating little Sarah Dorfline at the time, whatever dating in kindergarten looks like. But she was my girlfriend. And I remember Mrs. Stevens, my teacher, she split the room into black students and white students. And I don't know why. I don't know if it was for a census, but I can remember it clear as day. And so Sarah was like, come on, come to this side, come to the white side of the room. And I was like, I'm part white, I can go over there. And I remember Mrs. Stevens grabbing me by my arm and saying, no, you belong on that side of the room. But I'm black, I'm white, and I'm Japanese. So there wasn't a Japanese side of the room in Cheviot, surprise, surprise. And I felt like I was put into a box by my kindergarten teacher. And that didn't change. That happened a lot throughout the course of my life. Speaking of, so I mentioned being Japanese. This is my grandmother, Mihoko Ohashi. She was born and raised in Tokyo. And I grew up calling her Grandma Pearl. And I don't know why. And I remember one day I asked my mom, I said, Mom, why do we call Grandma Pearl? And she said, oh, Pearl Harbor. And I said, Mom, that's awful. And she said, yeah, but she's a racist. And I said, what do you mean? She said, she didn't come to me and your father's wedding. When I told them I was marrying your dad, they asked me not to tell her because it would be too hard for her to take. So this Japanese woman who experienced tons of racism in Gay Lax, Virginia, did not like black people. And so Christmas presents that I had were not from her. They were actually, they were from my dad, and he would just say they were from her. And I recently went to a memorial for her, and I wanted to connect with the Japanese side of my life. Like I took Japanese lessons and all this because I was hoping I could connect with her better. And then she went and got Alzheimer's. So now she doesn't remember anything to teach me. She keeps asking me about a girlfriend, and I'm like, that's not happening either, Grandma. But she'll ask me over and over again. So just another unfortunate opportunity with a misconnection. But I always tell folks, when you experience stuff like that, I know we all go forward and perpetuate stuff, but try not to. Because now I have this huge cycle of generational trauma that I'm still getting over. I'm crying on the stage in front of 300 people just talking about it. But you can turn into a public speaking gig. Later I went to Walnut Hills High School. Anyone heard of Walnut Hills? Yeah, best high school in the state. So it is the #1 high school in the state, I think. But I got put into boxes here too. It's funny. Folks go, oh, you went to Walnut, you must be a genius. You must be a genius. And I'm not trying to throw my CEO under the bus, but even during my job interview for the role I have now at the end, she said, you got this. She said, you're a genius, you went to Walnut. I had a 1.8 GPA when I went to Walnut Hills. 1.8. I graduated in the bottom 10 people of my class. I remember I was like, there's 215, I was like 207, 208, oh gosh. But I still hear what a genius I am for going to this school. It's a very Cincinnati thing to ask you what high school you went to, because folks like to, you tell them that and you know all this information about them. But for me, I still get credit for going to this high school with a 1.8 GPA. And what I want to tell folks is, could you imagine if you treated every kid at any school like, oh wow, you went to Worthy and Kilburn, you must be a genius. You went to Taft, you must be a genius. Because I've had people set such high expectations for me my whole life. And so I wonder what it would look like for each of you to set those sorts of high expectations for every child you work with. Doesn't matter what school they went to, doesn't matter what neighborhood. Like, set high expectations for the people you work with. Set it for your coworkers, because that's what that taught me. And I actually remember having an administrator there tell me, you're one of the first Eagles I've ever seen crash and burn. You're never going to be, you're not going to be anything. And I'm a vice president now, and he's no longer with the school or with anyone. He unfortunately passed away. But like, I tell folks, like, life changes, so you're not held to these circumstances. So have high expectations for everyone in your life. So I left Walnut Hills and I went to the University of Cincinnati, and I met someone. He was really trying to win a t-shirt, and so the more people that he could recruit into his program, the more likely he was to get a t-shirt. And so when folks ask you, like, how'd you get into DEI? I'm like, my ex wanted a t-shirt. And now my whole life has changed, because he got the t-shirt. That was the group that I joined. It was called the Racial Awareness Program, and that program taught me everything I know about DEI. It changed my whole life, and I believe in the power of cohort programs. We're actually doing a cohort program with the Ohio Children's Alliance, but you learn better together. People can hold you accountable. People can share ideas and stories. Every one of you out there has a story just like the ones I've shared, and so I hope you can make time to share those. But I stand on business. That program's the best program I've ever been a part of, and it changed my whole life. So as a reward for being in that program, this is a person holding a t-shirt, right? Yep. Okay. So as a reward for being in that program, they were like, Brice, we're going to send you to Boston. You're going to get to go to an inclusion camp where they're going to teach you how to be even more inclusive. So I get to Boston, I set my stuff down, and it's picture day. So I go over to get my shirt, and I go to the table, and it's extra, extra small, small, medium, slim, thick. They were getting up, and then it stopped right at 2X. I wear a 5. And so I go over to Sam, who's running this amazing program, and I say, Sam, I'm not going to be able to be in the picture. And he's like, oh, yes, you are. And I was like, all right, but I'm not going to, I'm going to be wearing my clothes. I'm not going to look like everyone else. That doesn't feel very inclusive. And he's like, no, you're going to wear the shirt. And I said, no, I'm not. And he goes, yes, you are. You look great in that shirt. Everyone, doesn't he look great in this shirt? And he gets 60 to 80 people I've never met to stand around me and root for me while I'm putting on this shirt with my belly button coming out of the bottom. And then they took that picture and they put it on the website. And it is still on their website to this day. A picture of me, I'm crying, my face is bright red. And this is an inclusion conference. So for the rest of the conference, I didn't feel like participating in anything. I didn't feel like doing anything. Flashback to that program I was a part of. So I come back to Cincinnati and it's my turn to order t-shirts. And so I order shirts for everyone, and we did a blind vote, so red or black. We always did black shirts, so everyone wanted red, but they didn't know they voted for it. So I go back to order the shirts, and the shirts in red only go up to a 2X. And so I'm having flashbacks. I'm like, oh gosh, this is like Boston all over again. And I tell my boss, Rebecca, I said, I'm gonna wear a different shirt than everyone else. And she said, no, you're not. And I was like, oh no, this is turning into, it's the thing. And I was like, I can't, I'll just wear a different color then. She said, no. She said, they don't know how they voted. And she changed everyone's vote to say they voted for black shirts. And I remember feeling centered in that moment and like getting tearful because it was like, wow, you're changing this for me. She said, if this doesn't work for you, none of this is worth it. If even one person feels left out, this is all for nothing. And so I remember bringing in the shirts, we cut open the box, and I was like, they're gonna be so pissed. And the first person pulls out the shirt and they go, black shirts! And they start throwing them everywhere and they put them on. They didn't care about what color shirts they had. I cared because I was used to being excluded. And so for folks who feel included all the time, it's really not a thing. But I bet a lot of the folks that you work with, I bet a lot of the kids that you serve are used to feeling excluded. And so I wonder what you can do to be that person, because I tell you this, some of those experiences happened over 20 years or 30 years ago. And I tell them, do you want to be remembered like Sam or do you want to be remembered like Rebecca? Because they will remember you. And so I'm wondering what you all can do to keep promoting that sort of inclusion. I will try and get through this one. So I worked with a big health system and they were trying to be inclusive. And I had one of the folks there tell me a story about a time she really tried so hard to get it right. And so they brought in a couple into the room. The woman's in labor. Both of them spoke Spanish and they didn't have a translator. And so she's giving birth and the gentleman's trying to like sneak out of the back. And so this nurse is like, She's like, I am a feminist. You are going to watch your wife have this baby. You aren't going anywhere. And he doesn't speak English, but he's like, no. Like he's trying to sneak out the back. And she says, no, you were going to come over here and hold her hand while she goes through this. And so he's just sitting there holding her hand. The translator shows up a little bit later. He didn't know her. He was just sitting at the bus stop next to her. And they both spoke Spanish. And so I tell that to tell folks, they will remember you again, but your reputation in the community is like a credit score. It is really easy to mess up and it is really hard to get back. And so do you imagine she went to all of her Latina friends and told them about the time they made a stranger hold her hand while she was having a baby? I bet. And she was a very well-meaning person. But even well-meaning people make mistakes. So one, get a translator, have them on hand 24/7. But two, understand that you're gonna leave here, you're gonna make mistakes, and community trust is very hard to get back. So lastly, I will tell you, I work at an agency now, and folks ask me about the work you need to do to work with people who don't look like you. And I have to tell you, you have to put in effort when you want to work with folks who don't look like you. And regardless of where you're from, you have a culture. Folks think culture is for indigenous tribes or folks in Africa, but you have a culture. Cincinnati culture is asking what high school you went to. We do it all the time. But Skyline, Gold Star, like we have things all about our culture, the Reds, Bengals. I can't guess anything else about Cincinnati culture, but like it's important to know that you have a culture and that the folks that you are working with have a culture. I always remember this video of a little girl and her family took her to an Indian restaurant and she was nonverbal, but she starts jumping up and down in the chair because that food was her culture, reminded her of home. And that family didn't know how to cook it, but they could take her to a restaurant. And so I wonder what you all can do to make sure that you are connecting the people that you work with to pieces of their culture. Are you yucking the music that they grew up listening to with their mom and dad? Are you yucking the food or the part of town that they grew up in? It's just important to realize like you have a cultural lens and they do too, and you have to navigate that together. So I have other slides just at the end to just name some lessons. I can't even see these, but I might jump off here real fast. But I just want you to remember briefly, avoid putting people in boxes. We know that that's a deal. Everyone oppresses someone, and so you want to make sure you are not that kind of person to do that if possible. And then we want to, so just know that there is more than one type of intelligence, and we have to have high expectations for the people that we work with. And then each one, teach one is a very big deal. There, let me know I'm at time, which is good because I'm on my second to last slide. But each one, teach one, so you all are responsible for going out and making sure that other people learn this stuff too. And you can do that by joining the DEI cohort. And then finally, one size does not fit all. I said finally, but then success is not free. I need to read this one. Success is not final and failure is not the end. And so you will leave here and you will mess up, but I hope you give yourself some grace. So with that, I just want to say thank you all so much.